And we are now live. Hi, Nick. What's up? Hello, everybody who is joining now or watching later. How are you doing, Nick?
Very good, thank you. Yourself?
I am doing excellent. So, my name is Dane. I am really excited and stoked and pumped to be interviewing Nick Osipczak today. Nick Osipczak is one of my personal heroes for many reasons that will become evident, I think, and the reasons that I'm interviewing him also, I think, will become very evident. But I'm broadcasting this on my Tai Chi page, Tai Chi. I teach Tai Chi, Qigong, martial arts in San Diego, Southern California. And I think that Nick is going to have some things to share with my friends here that are going to be really interesting. I want to say, first off, it's really hard to decide where to begin, because you're a living example of a modern day Renaissance man. For those of you who haven't heard of Nick, and I think not enough people have heard of you, which is why I wanted to do this interview to get some more of your story out there, because Nick is probably best known as a professional MMA fighter, professional UFC fighter, reality television show star. That's the most prominent public image, but this guy not only has risen to the top of the martial arts and competition world. Something that really resonates with me is you have a background in math, which I also have an undergraduate degree in math and physics, and you have an undergraduate in math, finance, and in accounting. You're going to find I've been Google stalking you for a few weeks to see what I can come up with, and it's really fascinating. The more I learn, the more amazing the more amazing your life really is, because well, the aspect of martial arts and physical competition is something that some people devote their entire life to, and nothing else. Likewise, the pursuit of intellectual pursuits, particularly mathematics, is likewise something that many people devote their entire life to, and nothing else. And a whole another realm is art, which you're also a professional artist, and your art, as well as these other areas of your life, ties in with your spirituality, which is really fundamental to everything. So not to mention your business endeavors and entrepreneurial pursuits. So I want to give this by way of introduction to say there's a lot of directions that we could take this conversation, and a lot of stuff that I'm fascinated to talk about, and I'm sure that our viewers will be really fascinated to hear about. But I'd like to know what's most alive for you right now as we're sitting here.
Most alive out of the things you just mentioned?
And everything else in your universe.
Well, being a dad dominates, to be honest. I got 2 young boys, so that's an everyday thing, you know. I'm lucky to squeeze anything else in, but yeah, my eldest son's got his sports day tomorrow, so I'm really excited about that. And we just had a great family holiday to Portugal, so we're still buzzing, you know, nice bit of sunshine and swimming every day. But more in terms of the things you've been mentioning, I guess it's the workshops at the moment that I'm really focusing on. So next week I fly to America to teach in San Francisco and Portland in Oregon. And I'm just at the stage in my life now where I'm branching out, visiting different places, making new connections, just spreading my knowledge, showing my knowledge in the internal martial arts, and obviously drawing on my background from MMA. It's a really unique combination, so there's a lot of demand for it, and that's what I'm focusing on at the moment, and I'll probably be like that for the next 2 years.
So you have kind of a 2-year plan for being a chi evangelist and spreading knowledge of the internal martial arts.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I get bored pretty easily, so I reckon after 2 years of traveling and doing a lot of flying and being away from home a lot, that'll probably be it for me. And to be honest, I think that's a long enough period where I can form some really good connections, decide which people I want to have represent the style in different countries, and then I can just keep working with those guys as a smaller group, and they can be the ones that pass it on to the masses.
Yeah, that's a really beautiful, inspiring vision. That was actually how I originally reached out to you, was as regarding your study groups. You're trying to start study groups, and so that was how we initially connected, and I'm really grateful that there's so many bright lights showing up to kind of share these ancient wisdom rediscovered, so to speak. I want to mention too, and among all the Renaissance man stuff, I forgot to mention in there also there's the family. And how old are your boys now?
The elder is 4, and my other one's going to be 2 in September.
Yeah, and so add that to the list of what Nick Osipczak is about. And at that age, kids are a handful, even if you just got one of them.
Yeah, that's right. Have you got kids?
I don't have kids, but I love kids. I play with kids all the time.
Yeah.
I love your kid Shen. I'm just going to be amazed to see how that kid develops over the years.
What? I actually made a couple of YouTube videos of him when he was like a baby, like under 1, just showing how I've been training with him every day. And I filmed a few things as he's gotten older, and it's going to be interesting to see. I'll put a video out, showing how he developed over the years, because it's pretty cool what he can do right now. It's, he was riding a bike with no stabilizers at 3, and he's just already in that mindset and that lifestyle of training every day and getting better every day. So but at the same time, we've got to keep it fun for him.
And I can imagine that as much as you're enjoying being with your kids, it's just an amazing learning experience, and it's really a short window that we have that opportunity to learn from kids when they're that age, and then eventually they become adults.
I'll have at least 1 more dose, so I'm gonna drag his beard out for a bit.
There's so much to learn. There's so much to learn from kids and from playing with kids, and not to mention if it's something that'll keep you in shape.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've said it in interviews before that Shen's been my main sparring partner for the last 4 years, and everyone thinks I'm joking, but I'm really serious. As you say, you learn from them. So wrestling, whatever, training, and just observing the movement, the natural movement, and the breathing. I'm taking it all in.
Yeah, and I read or heard something you mentioned in an interview as well about wanting to undo all the years of conditioning from drinking and partying to sitting in desks at school and get back to just a natural way of being like a baby, which is something that resonates with me and ties in with the Tao Te Ching, actually, which has a passage specifically about that, about being like a newborn babe.
Well, funny you should mention, because that was when I was 26 and I was going through the transition period and discovering internal arts and, you know, that way of living and way of thinking. It was the Tao Te Ching which really stood out to me the most and captured me and inspired me to make a lot of changes.
I still have actually the not the same copy but the same edition of the Tao Te Ching. That this is something else about your journey that resonated with me. That awakening experience you had. I had an awakening experience when I first began practicing internal martial arts, and there were various factors, and the Tao Te Ching was one of them. So this is I can tell a really deep connection that we have, and I wanted to talk about your spirituality a little bit more, but I'd like to just for our viewers, we have a few people joining us, and hopefully they'll invite their friends, and we'll have more. Your martial arts journey, just in terms of martial arts, it's a good example of the hero's journey. Joseph Campbell, the mythological hero's journey of starting out. You played sports as a kid, but no martial arts, right?
That's right. I didn't start martial arts till I was 18, but I was playing plenty of sports and all different sports my whole life. Although I never took anything really seriously.
And so, okay, and so you're kind of athletic and kind of gifted athletically.
Yeah, my dad. I've got an older brother. Both my parents are sporty. My dad always encouraged me to play lots of sports, and just the circumstances I grew up in, I had access to like swimming and tennis, and everyone in England plays football. So already you're doing a bit of cross training if you just even do 3 different sports.
Yeah, and movement is a need as much as air and warmth and food and shelter and everything else are, and just that movement need is something that a lot of kids and adults are suffering from a deficiency in. And then when you went to college, majoring in math, etc., which I'm curious about too. But in terms of martial arts, that was when you started martial arts, and this is for the guys who are watching. I want to tell this story as I've researched through the lens of Nick as the ultimate guy's guy. Here's a guy who goes to college, gets into martial arts, starts studying Shaolin Kung Fu, basically beats up everybody in Shaolin Kung Fu, and then goes out looking for, I wonder how this works against other styles. Decides to go into an MMA gym, gets beat up by everybody at the MMA gym, and says, oh, I think I can learn something from these guys, and trains with those guys for a while, and then beats up everybody at the MMA gym, then fights amateur, semi-pro, pro, takes a break, makes a comeback, wins nearly every fight, depending on who you ask. As of right now, that comeback fight was the last professional fight you've had, right?
Yeah, 2015. And to be honest, I don't really see myself fighting again professionally now. It's too much of a commitment for me to prepare for a fight. Plus, I'm not really motivated to enter that kind of competition. So I think that's in my past now. But you never know.
Well, is George Foreman one of your heroes?
Well, I'm aware of who he is, and I know he's fought until a very old age, but I can't say he's one of my heroes, and I don't actually follow boxing that much. But for me, you know, if I'm going to have a hero in martial arts, it's going to be someone who knows when to walk away and isn't fighting for decades at a time. Because the way I see it, you go in, you get some experience, you learn what you got to learn, and then you get out and you get out with your health, and then you pass on your experience, and then you're under a new chapter in your life. Whereas a lot of these fighters, they can't really let go. They're forced into retirement through injury, and they've taken too many shots at the head, and then they're a little bit, no matter how high they go up the ladder, they're still going to be a little bit bitter, resentful, frustrated, and they can't really let go of that period.
Yeah, so the whole idea of injury prevention, life extension, longevity is kind of at the foundation of what all martial arts eventually kind of evolve into, which I've heard you allude to that in interviews as well. That the evolution of martial arts eventually transcends fighting and becomes more about living well, being healthy, preserving your body, and so basically. I did want to bring up George Foreman because he's a source of inspiration for me, because he didn't actually fight until a very old age. He fought when he was young, took a long break, and came back at 40 after a decade or more, won a couple fights, and then stepped out again. But as an example of someone who kept himself up well, especially for a boxer, he was a source of inspiration for me, and actually an example of that principle of just knowing when to step up, when to step back, which actually leads around to the Dao De Jing again. That's another principle that runs throughout.
Yeah, the natural sequence and having good timing and understanding the flow of things.
Oh, and from the guys guy perspective, I also wanted to mention your start in pro fighting. You actually paid for as a professional poker player. You with your math background, math and statistics background and knowledge, supporting yourself as a pro poker player to train as a pro fighter, something like that?
Yeah, I mean, you're giving it a bit of a Hollywood twist, all of this, but I would say more semi-pro poker player. But you're right, it was a combination of statistics, but I think also psychology, understanding people and being able to read emotions and hide emotions, and just being a little bit ahead of the curve, especially in the groups I was playing before, I was moved on to the online playing. But yeah, I had a good few years at that. Some people ask me now, do I ever think of doing that again? And the answer is no. Again, it's just something in the past. I kind of got what I needed to get from that, and I'm just working on other projects now.
So, the way that your workshops, as you said, what you're focused on now, how did you come up with the name Raised Spirit?
You know what? It might have been around the time I was reading the Dao De Jing and other ancient Chinese texts, and I think that would have been a recurring theme. The spirit, or they use the term Shen, which is what I called my son, and how important it is. And when your spirit's low, then you're kind of asleep, or you're depressed, or whatever. You're not really up for it. You haven't got much energy. You're not really on point. And then after my chapter we were alluding to earlier, during that transition phase, I really felt like I had an energized spirit, and it was a raised spirit. And then I just wanted to make that the cornerstone of my teaching and my brand. And just really, if there was one thing I could pass on, it was the understanding of the importance of having a strong spirit and how to cultivate it, nourish it, and give it what it needs. So, you're living a more fulfilling life and a more enjoyable life.
So, what was your initial draw or hook into Tai Chi and internal martial arts? What was the catalyst for that?
It was ayahuasca, which is a plant ritual or ceremony, hailing from the Amazon originally. And when I took the plant, and that was a life-changing experience for me. And I instantly understood what the book on Tai Chi I'd previously read a few years was talking and pointing to.
Which book was it?
It was The Power of Internal Martial Arts by Bruce Francis.
Okay.
And then immediately as a martial artist, I was like, right, there's a more efficient way of doing things. I'm going to go start from scratch, become a beginner, and learn it this way, because A, it's more powerful, and B, I can study this way for a lot longer, you know, for the rest of my life, rather than just trying to be as strong and explosive, as powerful, and so as strong as possible, you know, by lifting weights and running faster and all that stuff. That's going to have a limited span, you know. By the age of 30, you're starting to dip down a bit. A lot of people extend it with the use of steroids and other performance-enhancing drugs, but I was never into that stuff. So yeah, I just wanted something. I wanted to achieve mastery in the martial arts, and I was willing to get on a new path, but I knew it was one which I could continue on for the rest of my life and continually improve.
So it was a book by B.K. Francis that was sort of the initial spark, and then with the catalyst of the ayahuasca.
When I was first exposed to the internal martial arts, and I started to read about it and try and educate myself about it. But then I put it to one side because I wasn't ready to make the transition. This was during my UFC fighting days, and it was too abstract and too against the grain for me to leave everything behind. So I just kind of forgot about it, put it to one side. And it was a few years later when I did the ayahuasca that, you know, suddenly the light bulb went off and I recognized the truth that was contained in the book. You still there, Dane? Yo, Dane. Can you hear still? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, good. Yeah, we're back. I lost you for a minute there.
Yes. So it was the book by B.K. Francis that sort of made you aware, and the catalyst of the ayahuasca kind of led you to pursue that that path. And how did you get involved with learning? Did you seek out
a teacher called Jeffrey Sutherland? He's got a school called Jasma, teaching in London, and I went to meet him. We had a chat, and he recognised in me the genuine desire to learn and the right motivations, and he offered to teach me for free there and then. And then we started meeting up, and I was learning one-on-one in the parks.
So we actually had a question in the comments here. How long you've been doing Tai Chi? I think that's how long have you been practicing now?
6 years now. I started when I was 26. I'm now 32.
So professionally, you have some other things going on, right? Are you involved at all closely with New Wave Academy still?
A little bit. I mean, I don't live in London anymore. I moved out to the countryside. But when I am in London, I pop in and have a little bit of training. I'm still good friends with the guys that are running it. They're two of my good students. And I keep up to date every now and again with that. To be honest, I'm not that much into the MMA scene. Only the really big fights I follow. So I don't keep up on a daily or weekly basis, but I try and stay in touch, and I'll meet up with them every now and again and train with them every now and again.
And how about your artwork? Are you selling your own art, or otherwise professionally doing art?
Yeah, that's all going great. So I completed my third series recently, and the brand is growing. I've got an Instagram account for that, Raise Spirit Art, and people are starting to dig it. You know, I'm, as well as producing and creating the kind of art I like, I'm also spreading the message about sacred geometry, which is helping educate people about something new, and linking in. It will all link in with the internal arts, so you know, it's win-win.
So how with the tie-in with sacred? How exactly does sacred geometry tie in with all of this?
It's just an awareness expanding tool. So learning more about the universe, learning more about yourself, and then, you know, it's easy to draw the parallels with other practices which also have that effect.
So are you familiar with the work of Stan Groff?
No.
He's the founder of transpersonal psychology, and basically one of the pioneers of states of consciousness research, and he was actually the one of the very first psychiatrists. He was a licensed psychiatrist in Prague in the 50s, and he was one of the first psychiatrists to use to work with LSD in psychotherapy, and he did that for about 10 years. Saw thousands of clients, thousands of sessions over 10 years, and developed the most comprehensive to date kind of narrative and landscape of the transpersonal realm based on that work. And he's written tons of books, and he's got tons of material on YouTube. It's really essential info for psychonauts. And something that I heard him say in particular about about art, mandalas, and sacred geometry, and sacred artwork is that the person who's creating it is experiencing a certain state of consciousness, and then when you contemplate that work of art, you're able to enter the state of consciousness of the person who is creating it. Does that resonate with your experience?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I hadn't painted for 10 years since leaving school, and then suddenly one day I felt the urge to paint. So I guess that's the same thing as what you're saying. I felt compelled to. It was it was a different state I was in that made me want to paint. So yeah, I totally get what you're saying. And for me, I'm in a fortunate position where I don't have to produce a certain amount of paintings every year. If I was trying to do that, then I would suffer from what's it called, creative block or writer's block or something like that, where you're trying to force something out of you, but it's not the natural way. So now I've not painted in a couple of months. I'm just sitting back chilling, and when the next message comes through, I'll pick up the paintbrush again, and it might not happen again, or it might happen tonight. So we'll just see what happens.
For me, there's a parallel with teaching Tai Chi or Qigong. I tend to use the more encompassing term Qigong because it kind of includes Tai Chi. But there's when you're practicing, you're in a certain state of consciousness, and when you're teaching, you're entering a certain state of consciousness, and and sort of transmitting or pulling others into that state with you. Do you relate to that experience of kind of going in and pulling others in with you as you're teaching or sharing?
I like the saying, holding the space. And when you become comfortable and familiar with an experience, you can hold that space for others to share the experience. Because let's say it's your first time having a new experience, you might be freaked out a little bit, or trying to logically understand what's going on, and then you pull yourself out of the moment. But with time and experience, you learn how to just settle into it, relax into it, and just be in that moment.
Yeah, holding space is a term that we use a lot here in Southern California. So what about your work with elderly people and people with physical disabilities? You've as you've been teaching, you've worked with a wide range of types of people. What have you gained from that, and kind of what's been your inspiration for that?
I think from a purely selfish perspective, I think my main motivation for teaching is to get better myself at Tai Chi and to understand it more myself, because I believe, and other people have said it before, that the best way to learn something is to teach it. But yeah, earlier today I was teaching a kids class, so I was teaching even 3-year-olds, and so I teach from 3 now all the way up to 83, and I love it. You gain as much from them as they do from you, and you get a little bit of a better grasp on the lifespan and the stages that people go through, and what's important. And yeah, for me, as I mentioned once already, I get bored easily. So by being able to teach kids one day, athletes another day, older people the next day, it keeps things fresh for me. Keeps it balanced and perspective.
So, are you teaching on a regular basis right now?
Yeah, because where I live is a small town, so I like to think I'm contributing to the community by running some classes. So I've got a kids class, a martial arts class, an adults health class, pretty much 3 classes a week where I live. And
as far as your upcoming workshop schedule, you're coming to the Bay Area. You said in how many days?
Tuesday. So 5 days I fly out, and I'm going to be doing a 5-day workshop in San Francisco, and then from there I fly to Portland in Oregon, and I do a 1-day seminar.
And this is going to be your first trip to the U.S., right?
First time teaching workshops there. I've been a few times before. I've got family over in California, but also I fought a few times in Vegas when I was fighting for the UFC.
How many, or where have you been in California?
I've been to LA. I've been to Utah, although I don't know if that's in California. I've been to Vegas lots of times. I've been to Boston. I know that's not in California. My memory's not very good. You have to forgive me.
Well, it's understandable. It's a pretty big place. I couldn't tell you most of the places in China I visited when I lived there. So what are you teaching in these workshops?
So basically, what I've found over the years is there's a lot of people that teach Tai Chi for health, but it's very, very difficult to find someone who can actually fight using the Tai Chi principles. And I like to think I'm bringing Tai Chi, I'm teaching Tai Chi for people that want to know real martial arts, not just theory, but they're willing to put in the hard training, the sparring, and get realistic feedback to find out whether what they're doing works or not, or if they're just imagining it in the head. So as well as that, I teach ground basics, because a lot of people, they've studied only the stand-up portion of martial arts, and they think they will never go to the floor. If someone tries to take me down, I'll just do one judo chop on the back of their neck, and that's that, which is a completely delusional way of thinking. So I always say to anyone who's serious about martial arts, you've got to know the basics at least of how to get up from the floor if you find yourself there. And just 3 or 4 key positions on the floor, just have a rough idea of them, and 3 or 4 key movements to help you more powerfully get back up off the floor from various starting positions. You know, you can learn that stuff in 5 days. Obviously, you have to then go away and practice it for a year or so, but you will have it after a year once you have just been taken through step by step in approximately 5 days, the fundamental positions and movements and concepts on the floor.
Yeah, well, like anything else, you have to be keeping it up to have it available, and for those if you already have an existing fitness martial arts program, and the more skills and techniques you can implement and work into that, the more effective you can be. And so what you're essentially doing is kind of taking all the best principles from all the training that you've done, and putting them together into this sort of synthesis.
Exactly, because you either 99.9% of people are either doing the hard external styles found in MMA, or they're doing the softer internal styles. So having been in both worlds for a prolonged period of time and really focus a lot of time and energy trying to understand both worlds, I'm able to introduce concepts from one side and try and tell them how the other one can benefit, and vice versa, because they both can learn a lot from each other.
Yeah, it's my own kind of trajectory and path in learning and teaching has been a process of expansion and inclusion, in the sense that I started out training martial arts when I was very young, because I was in the Ninja Turtles were my heroes, and I learned a lot of different styles going all the way up through college and after college, and they were all external styles. And then when I started graduate school, I sort of accidentally started learning Tai Chi without knowing it. I was going to a Kung Fu school, but the teaching was based on Tai Chi principles, and my definition, I like to clarify this, because there's different understandings of this and some controversy, the meaning of internal versus external. The definition I like to use is where with external, the focus is on athleticism and external results, and internal, the focus is on internal sensations and awareness. And when that resonates with kind of what those mean for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have given up trying to define the difference, because I don't believe it's possible. But certainly what you said was as good as any.
So when I turn my focus, in other words, of my training from outwards to inwards, I noticed a lot of things coming together, and what I started to realize was that all these different styles of martial arts I'd been learning all along were in a sense all different versions of Tai Chi, as in the Tai Chi, the one translation is the grand ultimate, sort of that which includes everything. And for me, when you move the focus away from techniques to principles, then you can train in a more expanded and inclusive and holistic way. And that's something else that I wanted to bring up with you too. Your teaching style. You have teaching videos on your YouTube channel, internal martial arts instructional videos. They're most of them around 15 minutes long, I think. So you have a series of those. Those are great.
I just wanted to put out a little taster for people to understand how the kind of things that I talk about and that you need to be able to do that right at the fundamental level, which can often be overlooked in the more external circles. And just slow the training right down, simplify it, hone in on just one or two parts of the body, one simple movement, just try to understand it a bit more, because we took it all for granted when we were learning it. We learned it so quick, we thought it was simple, we thought we had it, and then we tried to build on it from there. But if the foundations aren't really solid, there's going to be a ceiling to how high you can go thereafter. So for me, it's about going back to the basics, thinking deeply, pondering them, listening to the advice on what they're based on, what the principles, and start again from scratch. And then you can, there's no limit to how high you can go.
Yeah, I've had this experience as well, that there's a lot of traditionalism in martial arts in general, and particularly in Chinese martial arts, and particularly in internal Chinese martial arts. And there's certain elements of what you could call cultural baggage that go along with it, which include veneration of ancestors and reverence of older knowledge, and the closer you get to the source, the better, which are not kind of inherent aspects of martial arts training itself or internal martial arts training itself, but are really kind of artifacts of Chinese cultural history that in my experience have kind of gotten in the way of a lot of people being able to fully experience the benefits of. In other words, the ancient teachings are universal principles that are there for anybody to discover, but some people spend a lot of time studying them and discovered some things that they recorded in these forms, traditional forms, so that future generations could unpack them and learn from them. And in my experience, a reason that more people don't gain the benefits of internal martial arts is because there's a lot of traditional kind of wrapping, and I've always taken the approach that's the way I was taught, and what I've always found to work best in teaching, of focusing on the principles and building from there, and so this is just another thing that really resonated with me about your teaching style, is your focus on the principles, and kind of exercises, drills that you can play with to experiment with and learn about principles.
Exactly. My goal is just to take all the nonsense out, demystify it, and teach it the same way. Because let's say you go to university in England or America, the professors, they know what the subject is, they're experts at the subject, they break it down, they pass it on. That's the same way I'm trying to approach the internal arts.
And the instructional videos that you have on your YouTube channel are really great. They're just really direct and kind of focus on those few key principles that often get overlooked when the emphasis is on technique. So you're on everything is Raised Spirit, right? You're on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram as Raised Spirit or Raised Spirit Art.
To be honest, raisespirit.com is the website, and from there you can easily access everything else. So yeah, I would say just go to raisespirit.com.
Okay, yeah, I'll be sure to share that in the comments for this video. So Raise Spirit is kind of your central hub that
Yeah,
that
find everything.
people can access everything.
YouTube channel, the social media. I've even got a blog starting there recently.
Great, yeah. So I'm in terms of in terms of self-defense, I'm just kind of curious what your views are on how the martial arts relates to self-defense, because they're often used interchangeably, but they're actually different terms with different meanings. What's the kind of relationship there as you see it?
For me, the whole question of self-defense is, what is self-defense? You know, you've got to first agree on that, and it's not easy to agree on, because it all depends on your understanding of how things work, how much control we have over situations, what we consider the self, and it goes on and on and on. So it's a very difficult one to answer. Trying to put it a little bit simply, Chinese wisdom likes to dictate that prevention is better than cure. So for me, you're probably, if avoiding confrontation is the goal, which will obviously protect the self, then you might want to spend a little more time on understanding how to not get into confrontational situations and conflict and all this stuff. So, you know, it's a difficult one to answer because it depends what angle you're coming from.
But it sounds like your kind of personal interpretation has the emphasis on living rightly, essentially.
Yeah, for me, you know, what's important is the quality of your everyday life, how much you can harmonize with things, and almost have the least amount of resistance going on, which is why I use the Bagua logo for the Raise Spirit brand, because for me, one of the main messages it contains is the idea of just observing without attaching and understanding the seasonal nature of things, which can, by applying that, already massively make your life a lot smoother.
So your upcoming workshop schedule, you'll be in Bay Area, Portland, and Canada this over the next 2 weeks, and then you also
not Canada. Canada's next year. Just San Francisco, Portland, and then in September I'm doing workshops in Germany and the UK, and then that will be it for this year.
Okay, and then next year you're planning a trip to the US again, also in June?
Yeah, that's right, June. We'll also be going to Canada and San Diego.
Okay, great. I'm glad that you mentioned San Diego, because I want to let everybody know about your trip then in June of 2018. We've put together, as we discussed, a workshop. It's a 2-day workshop, Saturday and Sunday, in June of 2018, and you're going to be in town at least that weekend. And what can in a 2-day workshop, that's kind of what you already talked about, teaching the fundamentals of the internal arts and the fundamentals of groundwork and other elements from MMA, and if just 2 days, I probably won't be doing the ground stuff unless people are specifically asking for that.
2 days, you know, is really not enough time. I'll just prefer to focus in and help them understand a little better what they already practice. So if it's Tai Chi that most of them are doing, I'll just help them understand how the basic principles a bit more, how they should be structuring their training every day, and, you know, just pointing down the path so they can take their training deeper and deeper.
Okay, so you'll be able to kind of help them advance their internal training in whatever their current path is.
Absolutely, because unfortunately so many times you see people training who say they've trained 10 years, 20 years, and really they haven't improved much, and they should be much better than they are. But it's because they've been doing the wrong stuff all those years. It's very easy to plateau in our training, so you need new stimulus, new information to break through those barriers and take your training to the next level, take understanding of what's going on, how it works, and what the clues that you should be looking for to know that you're on the right path.
And especially in Tai Chi, the physical kinesthetic feedback, the physical contact component is a really important source of that feedback. And this is, in a sense, people you could say people don't test, quote unquote, their Tai Chi, which testing doesn't mean getting in the cage and going 3 rounds, but it just means using kinesthetic feedback and physical contact in a way to heighten your internal sensitivity.
Yeah, and test the structure, test the grounding, but more importantly, you know, anyone that's really interested in understanding Tai Chi as a martial art, I will be giving them one-on-one attention and explaining to them the bits which they're doing right, and to keep working on the bits that they're not doing right, and to forget and to leave behind, because it's not really going to work in a real fighting situation. For example, you know, there's the wet noodle disease in Tai Chi where people just go too floppy, too soft, and they think, oh, I'm invincible, you can't do anything. And I'm going to help say, no, you've kind of gone off the path a little bit there. This is what you need to be training instead. So it's just that immediate feedback. And as you say, the touch is they call it the transmission art, because touch is important. So you get a real, it's a feeling. They say tasting the Tai Chi, it can only be done through feeling, not just hearing or reading.
So you can take anyone with a Tai Chi practice and help them really develop it, kind of round it out in a martial sense. Absolutely,
yeah. And unfortunately, there's not too many other people that are doing that, and I think that's what makes my workshops unique, and why I recommend people attend it if they're really interested in genuine Tai Chi Chuan.
Yeah, and this is coming from a guy who climbed to the very top of that ladder, looked out, saw the view, and moved on to other things. So I'd say you can't get better feedback, higher quality feedback than that, as in terms of testing and improving your Tai Chi, your structure, your balance, all your fundamental principles. So this time next year, June of next year, you'll be here in San Diego in Southern California. This will be a great opportunity for anybody who has a Tai Chi practice and wants to make sure they're not suffering from the limp noodle disease. And there's actually a sales page that they set up. Now, you mentioned one-on-one attention. This is a workshop over 2 days, and you said it's 5 hours each day, so a total of 10 hours.
Yeah. We'll do 2.5 hours in the morning and then 2.5 hours in the evening. Normally, the way I structure it is working on the fundamentals, the foundational exercises, the things which should be worked on every day in the first half. And the second half, we make it a little bit more about the martial techniques and applications.
So it's nothing that's overly physically strenuous, or
it will be tiring, and it has to be tiring, because accomplishment comes through sacrifice. So the standing practice, right, that's the toughest part of the training. And yet how many people are doing that every day that consider themselves Tai Chi experts or trying to be Tai Chi experts? The standing practice should be excruciatingly discomfortable. But get that out of the way nice and early, and then the rest is fun.
Yeah, it feels great once you get over that hump, doesn't it? If only more people could be encouraged to get over the hump.
Yeah, well, hopefully after they're attending their workshop, they will be. They'll be motivated. That's one of the beautiful things about attending workshops. It's you get a little boost, an upgrade in your Tai Chi, but also you then quickly want to get back straight to training the next day. You're riding that wave, that momentum.
Right, you get over the plateau and you're on the upslope again.
Yeah.
So it's 5 hours over 2 days, and we have spots for 20 people to register. So it's limited to just 20, so you'll be able to give everyone plenty of individual attention and guidance. The link for that I'll share in the comments for this video as well. There will be plenty of time to register. It's in June of 2018, but there are 10 early bird spots to whoever gets them first. If you are going to be here in Southern California in June of 2018, or you can plan to be here in Southern California in June of 2018, then I'd recommend go ahead and make your reservation. That's something that I personally am just hugely looking forward to, and the anticipation is going to be with me for a while. So that's great. We are right here at an hour. So I think this will be a good point for us to wrap it up. I know you got a lot of stuff going on with your trip coming up. So anything that you'd like to leave us with?
I just want to say it's been a pleasure talking to another internal martial arts enthusiast. I look forward to meeting you in June. And yeah, just if you want to know anything more about me or Tai Chi or my workshops, get yourself to rayspirit.com, shoot me an email, and I'll be sure to get back to you.
Absolutely. He's a super friendly and approachable guy. That's how this interview got set up. So I'm really grateful to you, Nick, for the work that you're doing in the world, and many hands make light work is how the saying goes. So it's great to link up, and I really appreciate all your time and your generosity of spirit.
Oh, you're welcome. I'll speak to you soon, Dane.
Yeah, thanks. Have a good one, Nick. Bye. Until next time.